Welcome to another episode of the Elite Agent Masterclass. Today, myself and Jack Durkin are joined by Connor Harris. So Connor has a long history in the industry, a really strong background from several years back before transitioning into a world of creating his own business. He's got a really well-established brand on the South Coast, Marco Harris, and he's also moved down the media route. So Connor, welcome to the Elite Agent Masterclass. How are you, mate?
Thanks for having me. What an intro. Make me sound like a hero. Yeah. Thank you very much for having me on, boys. It's a pleasure to be chatting with both of you today. Both people that I idolise, look up to in certain aspects, and obviously we've been sharing ideas since the launch of the Avenue and with Marco Harris. So it's pleasure to be on.
Yeah, there's a lot of mutual respect there, mate, and I think that's why we wanted to get you on the pod just before we hit record. We were talking about the direction of travel for the podcast, the direction of travel for the Elite Agent Masterclass. And like we said, there's a real space in the industry that seemingly is gathering momentum, and it's about people being aligned on a common vision and a direction of travel for the industry. So we see what you're doing at Marco Harris and what you're doing individually, taking it that way. So we wanted to kind of get you in, pick your brains, understand what elite agency looks like to you. But first off, what was the journey? I think the first question is understanding sometimes the chronological journey for people. What was the journey that led you to the point where you're like, do you know what? I want to create my own thing.
Yeah, I think like you boys as well, there's always been that entrepreneurial fire in my belly where I've always pushed, I suppose, the boundaries of any employed role that I've been involved in. And the red tape's always held me back, plus my creativity is always come out in no matter what role I'm in, but then been sort of ceilinged at a certain point, if you like, because I've not been able to press past what I believe the industry needs because of board meetings and so on and people's beliefs within the industry. So I think we work in a very outdated sector. I love property. I love people. It's a people business and people forget that. And it just got to a point where I found a pattern in my employments where I was constantly becoming unhappy within the workplace that I was in for whatever reason that may be, but the pattern remained the same. So I thought, if I don't do this myself, then I need to look for a different industry. And actually, I think I can't, I'm not employable. It's as simple as that. So the only route for me was really to spread my wings, let that creativity flow and build something that I can do it my way. And service people properly would be one of the biggest things for me.
Amazing. You've clearly built an incredibly successful business over the years as well. So, and you've just mentioned off air that you're having a really successful month so far, which is great. What do you think has been the driving success for you or for Marco Harris since you launched?
I think myself and my business partner, Mark, working in the business for the first kind of year non-stop, 18-hour days, 7 days a week, really finding our feet with that customer journey process and understanding what good looks like and all the mistakes were made before we brought staff into the business. So we really narrowed down that customer experience and also that agent experience for us as to what we felt needed to be done before physically starting to grow the team with employed and self-employed agents. So when we came to actually starting to implement that growth plan, we knew that we need to give a platform for people to come into our world and flourish. And what we've seen with a lot of the agents that now work within the brand is they've come from a similar place to where we came from, which was they lost the fire in their belly for agency overall. And when they joined us, we reignited that flame. And all of a sudden, they're not only doing a job that they love again, but they're doing it in a world that's creative, flexible. They're doing it on their time, on their diary, servicing the customers at all times of the day as they see fit. Plus, they get to work from wherever they want to work from and have the flexibility to go and do the school run, walk the dog, go to the gym, look after their fitness a little bit more. And I think all of them things combined make it a really special place, like the Avenue, I'm sure, as well. Make it a really special place for people to have a career within. And I think if I was to pinpoint one thing for our growth and success over the first 5 years of our trading, it would be that once we implemented that growth plan, we implemented it and said, these are the guidelines for our staff and self-employed agents. This is the environment we want to work in. We've continued that through. So they feel like they're in the best working space of their lives. And I believe that they've got that as well.
Love that. I think one of the words that you use there, and I'm a big believer in this, is environment. And you also shared that the journey you went on, the type of character you are. I feel like you and I are quite similar in so much as like I've got this real creative side. And when I was in those employed roles, especially where we first met, I felt stifled. I felt like it was very much spreadsheet. Everyone is a number. There are no people. It's just a number on a spreadsheet. And that I really struggled with that. It's a really counterintuitive to the way I am as a person. And so, you said the decision you made to create Marco Harris, it could have been a coin toss of create something that's your own and put your stamp on it, or leave the industry. And I think the big thing for me in amongst all of that is that someone as good as you and as someone who's got so much to offer that you have could have made the decision to leave the industry, and that would have been a crying shame. And I think there are a lot of people out there that are in environments where they think they've got no other choice but to leave the industry.
For sure. Yeah, a lot of the people that we've interviewed in recent times are also at that sort of crossroads as well, especially where there's been huge changes, I think, across our industry because of the cost of living, everything that's going against us as an industry as well when it comes to the government implementing certain aspects and changing the economy in the markets. I think it's become a tough industry to make some serious money in, especially in the employed world, as a normal estate agent, as we know in the past. So a lot of these people that we're speaking to are at these crossroads of, look, I'm making okay money as such, but I'm really not happy within my role. I cannot see anywhere else to go. And actually, I think there's a few outlets now. We've got the large ones that we all know about across the UK that are trying to take the market share by storm and have these self-employed agents out there doing it for themselves. And then we've got people like you and I, who I believe are kind of in between the high street agents or the traditional agents, if you like, and these larger UK-wide ones that are given a platform that comes with a lot more support to enable people to move from the employed to the self-employed world and give them the time of day to really create a personal brand in their business. And I think it's really important that front runners like us continue to work together like we do to raise that industry standards, but also to give a platform for people to feel comfortable enough to make that jump, to keep good individuals in the industry, going back to your point.
Yeah, I think you touched on it earlier as well, that you've clearly built the foundations for agents. We've had quite a few agents that we've spoken to that have joined the model where they have been really deflated and they've considered leaving the industry. They've been in either employed roles or self-employed roles in other businesses where they haven't felt they had the support, the platform, or the foundations and structure to be able to create a real success from it. So yeah, I love the fact you've built all the foundations. You and your business partner have been in the business working really hard. It sounds like there's been some hours that have been put in over the years as well. And we talk a lot about work-life balance. How do you find and manage that kind of in terms of the balance between work and managing all the agents you've got, the team, and running the business at the same time as well?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a good question because it's a forever evolving role. I think as a business owner, you come on day one and you're spinning every single plate under the sun. You're a entrepreneur, you're a business owner, you're an estate agent, you're an administrator. All of these things that roll in. And effectively what I did once we got to a year in and we knew what the growth plan was, I started to look at ways that I could redundant myself from each individual role that I took within the business. And that was the strategic approach that I took in order to make myself redundant so I can work on the business, not in the business. So the step one was bringing on what we'd call a negotiator. So that was someone who could assist me with taking care of the viewings. That put X amount of units or time back in my diary throughout that week. So let's say, for instance, 30 hours were now added to my schedule. I could then spend that 30 hours on doing things that were going to generate more revenue for the business, as well as working on larger projects that I didn't have the time to before. Once I saw that that change, it was really easy for me then to understand what jobs were taking the most amount of storage out of my time, and then been able to recruit in to be able to get to my situation where I'm what I call completely off the tools and working on the business. And that's where we sit today. So we're in our 5th year of trading, and I'm now in a space where I focus generally on the larger projects, the strategic marketing, the day-to-day marketing for the business, the social media implementation, helping and coaching. So I don't do the valuations anymore. I don't do anything customer facing anymore. But I know that I'm more valuable to my people and to the brand by doing what I'm doing today versus what I was doing 5 years ago. So because I've been through that as well, it's really helpful for the new self-employed agents that are coming through into our brand, because I've been there and I've done it. And I've also been there and done it and started it with a brand from scratch, whereas they're coming in at year 4, year 5, where they've already got a bit of brand awareness campaign around them that's supporting them, so that step ahead, is, if that makes sense. But in terms of balancing it all, I've got 2 kids, a wife, and another, obviously, media business, as you mentioned, which is organically grown out of Marco Harris. Is if you're looking at this video, or you're listening to this, and you're thinking about setting up your estate agency from scratch on your own completely and being like a Jack James or a Connor, you need to be prepared to just take bite to your life for 5 years. But do you know what? In all fairness, I think it's about having the right support mechanisms around you at home. If you've got that and you've got understanding from the people that support you the most, then you can find that balance really nicely. Like, I've taken my kids to school 90% of the time for the last 5 years. And that was something that I never did before in an employed role. I go to every single event, schooling event or sporting event or whatever it is for my kids, which again, never had the opportunity to do before. And I saw a quote actually this week on I think it was on one of the social media platforms, and it said something like, if you've got time to nap, spend time with your kids, and train during the day, gym, whatever it may be, and you're running your own business and still paying yourself, you're a successful business owner. And that resonated with me a little bit, because for the last 18 months, I've put more focus on my health, my family, as well as still doing the business stuff. And that's an amazing space to be in. I think estate agency and all, especially the self-employed world, gives people the ability to really take back the lifestyle that potentially that they always aspire to have, and give them the platform to make money and still grow a family and an amazing lifestyle outside of work.
I think there's 2 things that come off of listening to you share that. Firstly, the hairs on the back of my neck stand up when you're talking the way you do about the time you get to spend with your family and everything else, because it is so important that I think quite often people lose sight of how important that is. But the 2 things for me come, again, environment. You know, you've been surrounded by a very supportive wife, a very supportive family, you know, a collective of people that just want to see Connor Harris win. And that's really, really crucial. And I think the second thing that is the spin-off there is a phrase that I saw, I don't know, a couple of 3 months ago, and I thought, you know, that really, it's choose your hard.
Yeah.
And so you've chosen your hard, and the hard has been that the last 5 years you've had to put the graft in. But the choice is, like you're saying, the 18-hour days. But that doesn't then mean that you've not taken the kids to school. It doesn't mean you've had to miss school events. It doesn't mean that you've had to you've made sacrifice. But the alternative to that is you could have stayed in the employed role you were in before, which was well paid, which was in a at the time a business that was in its ascendancy, which came with a lot of stress and with a lot of hours, but with no autonomy, no freedom. So choosing your hard, like, do you want to work 9 till 6 until you're 65, or do you want to work 18-hour days for 5 years and then have almost complete freedom?
100%. And I think the other thing as well is built in that. Again, there's 2 levels to it, but if you're thinking about going out there and setting up a business from scratch, you've got, first of all, the retention of a business that's potentially worth something. You know, if you've got an exit in mind, so if you're setting up a business to exit at some point and make a life-changing amount of money, then it's like mortgage versus renting, right? You're investing your time into something that's going to pay out in 10, 15, 20, 30 years, whatever it may be for you from an exit point of view. So actually choosing to do something that's really, really tough in the early stages, when you start to come out the other side, there is a kind of, I suppose, pot of gold at the end of the tunnel sort of thing. And for me, that's important as well. It's giving this business may remain, and we certainly haven't got the ambition to exit this business anytime soon. But if we're in a situation where we are building something that has a price tag attached to it, that's either a legacy business for my children, or it's generational wealth, or it might be that actually we come to the decision that it could be worth millions in years to come. And if that is the case, that's a life-changing amount of money, which again is going to have an effect on our family. So having sort of thoughts around, is it worth me jumping into the self-employed world? Is it worth me, jumping into to be a full-blown business owner? But actually, if you get the right team around you, the right support, the right network of people, if you're very, very good at something, you can always find people that are better than you at things that you're not so good at, to help you and assist you grow that in order to build something really special.
Totally. The question, I'll pause there because there is a question. We've talked about your journey. We've talked about the business ownership piece, as in your role within Marker Harris and etc. You've also talked about the fact that you've got this setup and structure whereby you've got self-employed agents joining you. And I think a large majority of people that listen to the Elite Agent Masterclass will either be business owners or self-employed, or looking at aspiring to move into the self-employed space. So when you're having a conversation with someone who, let's say, is the employed world at the minute, let's say they're at a corporate, a Connells, a Countrywide, and they're looking at making that transition from employed to self-employed, what's the number one piece of advice you give them?
You need, to back yourself. If you're sat in front of me as an employed individual and you're thinking about coming into the self-employed world, and you're not 100% confident that you're good enough to go out there and feel uncomfortable and put yourself outside of your comfort zone and graft, then there's no point in us having a conversation. And I think that's one of the challenges that you and I will always face, where we're trying to get seasoned and good estate agents into our brands that have been far too comfortable for far too long. So actually they're on the other side of seasoned that we want, because they're very good at what they do under their current banner and brand. But you stick them into a self-employed world where they've got to go back to basics and start generating business for themselves and so on and so forth. It's a whole different ballgame. So if you're willing to sacrifice a couple of years of your life to put that graft hat on and feel uncomfortable and get outside your comfort zone, then 100% you need to be speaking to a company like ours or yours, because if you do that and you're willing to do it, the success on the other side of it is huge.
I think it's also this difficult, isn't it? Because there's so many different models out there. And I'm sure for a lot of people that are looking at the self-employed model, they're probably overwhelmed with the number of different models and different brokerages that are available. We touched on it a little bit earlier. We've spoken to a lot of people that have lost the passion, and it's tough. It's hard, like you just said. You've got to work really hard, put yourself in uncomfortable positions, do things that sometimes you really don't want to do to build the business that you're looking to have. But would you agree that it's also really important to make sure that you're aligned with the brokerage and the model and the vision and the direction that company's going in? We've got an agent that we spoke to yesterday. She's going to be joining us on the pod very soon. And she told us and asked us not to mention the work-life balance, because she's been working so hard in her business recently, putting so many hours in, but she's still loving it at the same time. She's got 3 boys. She still spends loads of time with them, but she puts a lot of hard work into her business, doing very, very long hours. However, she still loves it and gets up every day really, really enjoying it, because she loves the direction. She loves how she's growing the business. She loves the autonomy that she's got, and she just loves everything about it. So I think for her, she probably doesn't feel as though she's working hard, because it doesn't feel as much like work to her.
Yeah,
so,
you've hit the nail on the head. Like, there is things, because I've mentioned work-life balance a few times, and actually pound for pound, I probably work more hours than I ever have done, and so do my agents, but it doesn't feel like work. So it's that enjoyment piece that needs to be right. And then coming back to your question, I think I'll use an analogy. If you're buying a product and that product's available in 7 different stores in the local shopping place that is near to your home, you'll probably go to all 7 stores to first of all see what sort of price you can get. It was the best one for you, what the service looks like, is there an aftercare package for that product, what does the warranty look like, and you're making an educated decision once you've shopped the market and done your research. And I think the same thing goes into people even more so when they're shopping to build their career. So if you are an estate agent and you are, I suppose, you've got some cloud there in terms of what does the self-employed world look like? What are my options? What's best for me? It's that 2-way interview process for me. It's go and speak to every single self-employed model out there, speak to the business owners, speak to the people within that brand as well, and have a chat with people that are on the ground doing the job, and find out what the ethos is. You'll tend to find, like you boys and I, we're very transparent with the way that we operate our businesses, and that floods into the environment that we operate in, the community that we offer, the service that we offer to our clients as well. And you'll tend to find that you'll get real honesty from people like us when someone's joining, because we know what it's like firsthand, coming from the world that we have, where you're in a role that potentially could financially make you commit suicide because you are on false promises rather than complete transparency. So go and have conversations and do your research before jumping into one of these models.
Totally agree. And I think the analogy used is a really, really good one. And I also think it's very transferable from the point of view of being an estate agent as well, isn't it? When you're looking and doing your research to join a model, if you're in a headspace where you want the cheapest route to enter the space and nothing else matters, that's like the clients that want the cheapest estate agent. But actually, does the cheapest estate agent get the best result, give the most value, give the best support to the client? Probably not, because they can't afford to. Whereas, like, I look at it from an estate agency standpoint, as an agent, I am, if not the most expensive, one of the most expensive options for a client to choose. But they're investing in the value that I provide. And so when people are researching, looking at the value proposition, what are they getting back in return? And actually, the thing that I would probably say that people need to do, and you've alluded to it, Connor, is there's some really, really good estate agents out there within brands, within corporate structures, that when we, in inverted commas, then qualify what really good looks like, they may be great at turning an MA into a listing, or they may be really good at turning the listing into a sale, really good at negging the deal. But none of that involves front-end lead gen. None of it involves being a 360-degree agent. And so I think it's really having that long, hard look in the mirror and going, where are the flaws in my ability? Am I going to be shit hot at generating leads? Because if I'm not, and aligning with a brand that's super cheap to enter the space, but doesn't offer any support around how to do the lead gen, well, then I'm going to flounder.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's why, coming back to that piece on the agents that are out there, the pool is so small for us in these counties to find the best estate agents. Naturally, we go to who's the lister, who's the branch manager, how long have they been there? They're the best people to talk to. And what I found, and I know we've spoken about this before, is we're kind of at a point where we've plateaued in speaking with everyone in certain areas where we go, there's not really much else that we can do. If they don't want to leave that itself, if they don't want to jump into self-employment, or we don't think that they're good enough naturally in our environment because they are good in theirs, but not potentially in ours, where do we go from there? And that's where I think we need some real fresh blood into the industry that don't come with any bad habits, that don't come from a corporate background, that don't come from an employed position. If you look at the beauticians of this world, the hairdressers of this world, the barbers of this world, even the freelance creatives like your photographers, videographers, that space has been self-employed for years and years. It is very, very natural for them to rent a chair within a barbershop for £500 a month, and they're going to pay a premium in a particular barbershop because it's on the best high street and they're offer the best support or the most client walk through the door, right? It's exactly the same as self-employed estate agency, but we are probably 10 years out of date because we're waiting for people to catch up and for this to become the norm. So the more people that make the jump and the more beautiful our brokerages look, the more support we can give them, the more profit that we have to spend back into our brands to give them support of whatever it may be that they need. And the more fresh blood that we bring into the industry, the better space it's going to become. And I believe with company leads like us, we'll be able to raise that standards across the board and make sure that estate agency doesn't become or continue to be looked upon as a shit industry, because let's be honest, we're not the most liked, right? So I want to change the face of that, and the only way we're going to do it is by having these conversations with like-minded people across the country, trying to change the standards. But we've just launched the academy, as you know, and we've started to now bring people into the brand that are fresh to industry. In particular, we've got one gent who's just started with us. He's come from a very comfortable employed position, completely out of industry with no property experience. And I suppose he's our first person that we're going to really put our time and effort into now over the next 6 months to see if we can build someone into a 360 estate agency role with no experience. This particular individual is articulate, tenacious, has the fire in the belly to create something for himself. And his words to us were, "I'm sat in a shit dead-end job that I really dislike. And I've watched you guys on social media and I love how much all of your people love what they do. I want that feeling and I want to be a part of your brand." And that for me is the right attitude, carries the right characteristics to be able to take them from completely green to hopefully a well-rounded, no bad habit agent working within a brand. And if this works, then that will be the way forward, that we breed, new blood into the industry that are come in and know nothing else but high standards and self-employed estate agency.
Go on.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I suppose there's a lot of talk about whether you have to have experience in the industry to go into the self-employed models, or whether you could do it without. I think there's a lot of bad habits that people do create. So whether you come in, especially for brands like ours, very forward-thinking brands, we try and do things differently. We make sure that the service is really high, the market's really high. So I think for a lot of people, whether you're in the industry or outside of the industry, you've got to come into this with an open mind. You've got to come into this being open to changing what you've done and changing things that you've been used to. And that's sometimes a challenge. I think when we've all came from similar backgrounds. So when I was when James and I met at Purple Bricks at the time and we set up the business, the Avenue, we were going to do things completely different to what we've been used to. And that was a real, I suppose, challenge for me at the start as well, being open-minded to doing things very differently, not charging the low fees they were charging before and charging much higher fees. And it's a bit of a transitional change, isn't it? It can take a little bit of time getting used to. Have you taken your agents on that journey, Connor? You've got a few agents across the business. So have you helped them transition into that? And has there been a lot of change for them?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I think is personal branding, and that's a hot word around our brand at the moment because we're drumming it big time. And I think if your desire is to become a go-to agent within whatever respected area you're working in, your personal brand is so important. It started to become, in my opinion, one of the most important things that you can have, or tool that you can have, because people buy from people naturally, which we've always known. But our brand gets them through the door. That's how we look at it at the moment. Our brand will get you through the door, but we can only lead a horse to water, right? So in order to close that deal and actually get the property onto the market with that vendor, you need to sell yourself and understand why you're good and why people should be using your service. And personal branding and the power that has these days is huge. But coming back to your point, it's really difficult to take a traditional estate agent from another brand, bring them into this modern world and weird and wonderful, forward-thinking, crazy-led business, to then say, right, in the next 2 years, we're going to grow you a personal brand, and you're going to be talking on camera every day. You're going to be giving tours of property like you've never done before. You're going to be jumping into pools in video tours, you know, stuff like that. This is crazy stuff that if you said to someone 2 years prior to being part of our company, you're going to be doing this in 2 years, they'd go, there's no way that I would be doing those things. So you do get, you know, there's some friction, there's some reluctancy sometimes, there's some, I don't understand why I'm doing this sort of mindset. And I suppose, because coming back to my point earlier, because in the early days we went through it and that foundation was built, and we knew that we were getting business simply from our social media platforms and our personal branding, we know it works. So we kind of from day one slowly introduce them into what this personal brand journey looks like: Instagram set up, TikTok, Facebook, you know, that sort of stuff. And then we slowly but surely, you know, build upon it. But one of the things I will say is it's about finding your personality, and not trying to be this charismatic estate agent on camera that is so fake it's unbelievable. Because in the early days, I was exactly the latter. I was that, you know, hi guys, come and have a look at this 4-bedroom. It's just not, it's not natural, and you feel like an absolute knob doing it, and most people will as well. But what we've found is actually being yourself and 100% authentically will give you a lot more than what it will you trying to be a showman. And it's about, you're not going to have 100% of a fan base, and everyone's not going to like you, and you will get some people going, what an absolute twat, and you are going to get some other people that go, oh, I can't stand this bloke just from his videos, or this lady from her videos. But I don't care about the 10%, it's the 90% I care about, and the 90% are going to be your future custom. So not only are they going to be your future custom, but you'll tend to find you'll get supporters and raving fans within your circle from your social platforms that you never even knew that you had. Since launching this business, I've had more support from strangers than I have close friends and family, with sharing content, with helping me with certain things, with being a believer and a supporter and passing business and referring business into us. And once you get past that kind of feeling uncomfortable stage of doing the videos and being in front of camera and so on and so forth, the first time that you then get someone call you or message you off the back of one of these, and they go, I've got a house that I want to sell in this location, or I've got a house that I want to rent out for you in this location, and I don't need you to pitch to me because I've learned and I feel like I know you from watching your videos for the last year. How much are your fees? Perfect. Don't even question it. Sign on the dotted line. I'm your customer for the next 10 years. You've built your trust. Yeah. Which, if we go back to our traditional days, it was, we have a 5-minute phone call to do 80% of our job, which is 80% now done on our platforms behind us, without knowing it. So personal brand is super, super important. And again, comes back to the interview process, the transparency. You need to be having an open conversation with these brands and going, actually, what do you expect? What's going to be the norm for me? Am I going to be in front of a camera? If you're saying, look, you know, we're this forward-thinking brand and we're going to want you to set up an Instagram, build a personal brand, get outside your comfort zone, and you don't feel comfortable with that, then go and find someone who's not doing that sort of stuff, you know? The be-all and the end. Yeah.
I was going to say, I think that's quite an impactful piece. So where I asked you the question of what's the number one piece of advice, I think it all sort of ties back as well, because as I'm listening to what you're sharing there, I think it's as important to disqualify the wrong client or the wrong partner agent, or, you know, the wrong business partner, or whatever. It's as important to disqualify as it is to qualify. And I think if agents can transition in that mindset of, I don't want to be all things to all people. I'm not working in an environment now where there's this KPI-led approach that means that every single home I go into has to come on the market no matter what. If you can transition to that place where I only want to work with people I get on with, I only want to work with people that are prepared to pay me the right amount of money, I only want to work with people that embrace our vision for the way in which we're going to sell their home. Most clients I meet with, I am giving them a pretty controversial approach to the way in which we're going to market the property. And as long as I explain myself properly, I come out on the right side of the conversation.
Yeah.
It's when you're trying to be all things to all people. I met with a client the other day and they said to me 3 times in the meeting, are you sure that our house is a good fit for your model, for your business? Are you sure? They're questioning whether or not they're good enough for us.
We get the same thing.
And this is the point, isn't it? And I think so many people we speak to, and so many people that may be listening to this go, oh yeah, whatever, that's not going to happen to me. It can, what Connor has just said, if you can breathe life into what Connor has just said about building your personal brand. I mean, to some extent, even some of the traditional agents out there, if you could start giving your brand and your business a personality, stop being just another color on the high street, because that's all that differentiates estate agents right now. Red, pink, blue, orange, it doesn't matter. You're just a brand color. Give it some personality, but be prepared for people not to be a good fit.
Yeah.
And be prepared to be yourself.
Yeah, like the same thing, you know, you go back to being a branch manager, all right, you're going to get paid, let's say 10%, you do £10,000 worth of fees, you get £1,000, right? In the self-employed world, that's going to be a minimum of £5,000 and potentially up to something like £9,000. As an agent, that's what you're going to be earning, the difference between being employed and self-employed. So when you're sat in front of a customer and you're in the lounge and you're talking to them about the brand and what we're going to do for them, and you're talking about the value of you, your fee, and everything that you're offering in terms of that support, if that customer doesn't understand it and they are stuck in the traditional ways and they want to use one of these brands that we all know that are on the high street and have been there for donkey's years, but they don't want that extra added value, then don't work with that client. You know, you're well within your right as a self-employed agent to like you say, choose and pick, because ultimately that time's much more precious to you as a self-employed, because as a self-employed agent, your time is worth, in my opinion, a lot more than what it is as an employee, because you need to understand over the course of the week what you can actually earn. And if you break that down by minutes, by hours, the time that you have to be able to put in and get the output from is far greater in a self-employed role. So you should be choosing the properties and the clients that are going to fulfill you and your brand. Simple as that.
I think you touched on it as well, that the personal brand piece, and I think it's so important, the personal branding, because it will attract the right type of clients, won't it? And I'm glad we kind of moved on to the personal brand piece. I know you're very big, and I know we've all taken a lot of inspiration from the stuff you do on social media and how great your socials are and the different things that you're doing with the creativity. So for an estate agent that's starting out their personal branding journey or their social media journey, what would you suggest? How do they get started? What would you suggest be the first steps for them? Because it can be quite daunting, can't it, for someone?
Yeah, it's massively daunting. I think first of all, just you don't want to emulate, you don't want to go copy someone. Would be my first thing, because again, it comes back to that being yourself and not trying just to be someone else because you think that that's the right thing to do because you fit in that box. Of course, we can take inspiration, and I think we all do, including us and our brand. We take inspiration from people's videos, from overseas, you know. So do your research and see what the industry's doing. But then once you've done that and you understand what good looks like and what bad looks like, you need to make a decision on which sort of way that you want to go with your personal brands. Do you want to be completely open and give something a little bit more than just the property side of it? Do you want to be Connor Harris with family, with kids, with business, with everything all mixed into one on your platform? Or do you want to be Connor Harris, just property? And you then need to just be consistent and show up every single day. So the biggest excuse that we get is, I don't have the time. And it's the same when people don't want to go to the gym. It's the same when people don't want to go and do that run at 6 a.m. in the morning, right? Because they're telling you they don't have the time because they think they don't have the time, but actually it's their brain telling them that I don't know what to do. So it's not something that's on my agenda because I don't feel confident in it. I don't want to do it. So I'm going to put it to the bottom of my priority list. But Jack, I know you work out a lot and you run. And if you do not make that part of your everyday habit, then it will be one of the first things to just fall off because it's a hard task. So people don't generally like going for a 10K run because it is difficult, but actually the other side of it feels so nice. So it's about getting to that point rather than actually, doing the task itself. So if you can teach yourself and build that habit to go, I need to be posting something on social media every single day, but that comes with its challenge in itself because you can't just go and post shit. It needs to be meaningful. It needs to be educational. It needs to actually do something. Yeah. And that's then coming down to strategy and working with someone who actually understands, getting a mentor that goes, right, okay, we need to push you in this direction. These are the sort of topics that we need to be talking about. These are the things that you as a personality, I think would be really good at. Our agents are all so different. We've got someone who maybe a bit more plain with their personality. We've got someone who's a bit more eccentric. We've got someone who's more outgoing. We've got someone who's introverted. Naturally, personalities are like that. So not everyone's going to be this big character on screen. It's playing to your own strengths and it's finding your own path and creating your own rhythm. So
I could imagine as well on it that each of those agents will attract different types of clients. Then they've got different personalities, so probably got very different clients that they attract.
Yeah, I said to one of our agents, last week, I said, I can't do talking videos, and I'm like, okay, why? Well, because I'm boring. Well, actually, that's not the case, is it? Because if you were boring, then for the last year, you wouldn't be picking up the custom that you're picking up. Because if you were boring, you sat in a lounge with someone for the last 45 to an hour, they wouldn't be choosing you to sell their property because boring doesn't close doors. It doesn't close deals for people. So it's about finding, you might think you're boring, but actually someone on the other end of that screen watching you might think you're the most entertaining person in the world. And actually, this particular gent makes me laugh every time I'm around him because he's dry. He's got banter, but it's very much direct. He's what it is. So you have to make a play on that personality and you need to find your custom, like you say, that will love to watch it. My daughter's obsessed with TikTok, right? And she watches people eat food in Korea and China and they don't say a thing. So you can't come to me and tell me that you can't talk in front of camera or you can't find a niche. You don't have to bloody talk.
It's that limiting belief, though, isn't it? He's probably believing that people aren't going to enjoy what he puts out there. But I think for people like to see just natural stuff, like some of the stuff that we've posted that is just raw, real. It's just a little bit about what we're doing throughout the day. Some people might think it's not that entertaining, but it's actually what gets the most interaction, surprisingly. Sometimes not even the property stuff. It's more the stuff that's happening behind the scenes. So I think just sharing a little bit about your day, some people might feel it boring, but I think a lot of people find it quite interesting.
It's all as well, and the behind the scenes and the consistency, because a lot of outsiders to our industry think we work in a real glamorous space. It's all like selling sunset stuff and all that sort of jazz, yeah? Which for you, Jack, I know it is, but for normal people like me and James, it's slightly different. So when you're sharing a little bit more about what it is that we actually do, people find it quite interesting. So, oh shit, I didn't really know that was part of the role that they do. And just that consistency on timings as well. If someone's looking at this and thinking, actually, I do want help for socials, would be my bit of advice on top of what we've just gone through would be create yourself timeframes in which you post and make sure that people are fully aware that that's the times when things are going to be posted. So there's certain people that I follow outside of industry that do exactly that. I know at 7 o'clock in an evening, I'm going to be watching a story that's going to have some sort of structure to it, because I know that that's what they do. I follow some clothing brands that do reselling, and they will drop their new stock at certain times. It's now become a custom that I know that they're going to be dropping their stuff at certain times. And it's like that kind of scarcity thing of, I need to go and watch it, because I'm going to miss out. You know, I've got FOMO. So you need to kind of create that with your stories and your posting as well, and just be a bit more strategic with it. Find, there's lots of tools behind the scenes on these social platforms, right? Analyze them, understand them, know when your clients are watching your stuff, know when people are coming off screen during your video. If you're posting something that's a minute and a half and then dropping out for 30 seconds, why the fuck are you going to film a fucking minute and a half video the next day? Stop doing it. Do what they want.
Yeah. Such solid advice. There's so much in amongst what you've shared where it's like, those little simple things. I think that's the big thing with the industry, right? Though, and I don't know whether you feel the same, Connor. You meet so many people and it's like the process ends up becoming more complicated than it needs to be. I think some of the things that I picked out of what you're sharing, the environment is so important. The people you surround yourself is going to be critical to whether you can succeed or not. Your ability to just simply show up consistently, finding your message, be yourself. I mean, is there anything easier than just simply being who you really are? I mean, fucking hell. If you can't be yourself, then there's a real problem in the world. And so there's nothing complex in any of that. Then you've got, obviously, like you say, you've got to start analysing the data, but the data's there. You haven't got to go and gather it. You've just simply got to look at it and go, okay, like you say, someone's dropping off at 30 seconds. I've either got to make my content more engaging or shorten my content.
And just give, like, with all of that in mind, with them things that we're talking about for social only, and then the normal estate agency stuff, you package that in and self-organize your weeks in advance to give yourself time to do these things, then I don't think you can go, like, you can't lose by doing that. You have to then stick to that structure, and that will give you a nice, real grounding for success, in my opinion.
100%. It's never a case of people haven't got enough time. It's just, I think if people can recategorize that sentence in their mind from I haven't got time to that thing isn't important to me, and all of a sudden that whole I haven't got time will start to hit differently. Because if you transfer I haven't got time, like if I said Stanley and Margot this morning before I left to come and record this with you guys, Stanley, Margot, I haven't got time to play with you this morning. That if I recategorize that to Stanley, Margot, you're not important to me this morning, fuck that. You're way more important than anything else in my world. Yeah. And so I think that recategorization is so critical. Connor, you've shared so much value. For those of you that aren't familiar with who you are or aren't connected to you, where can they find you? Where can they connect with you, mate?
So the business is Marco Harris UK. Handle for that is on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. It's all the same. Marco Harris, all one word with UK at the end. And if you want to follow me personally and get some funny insights to my sassy daughter and nightmare of a son and my family and what happens in my crazy life, then it's Connor Harris with a 5 instead of an S at the end.
Connor Harris. So Connor Harry Air 5.
That's the one.
Love that. Connor, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. There's loads of bits you've shared that's just reminded me how much synergy there is between the three of us. So I don't doubt that there'll be some conversations that will be a bit of a spin-off off the back of this. But really appreciate you jumping on the pod with us today, mate. And until we speak next, see you again soon.
Thank you, lads. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you, Connor.